Well, welcome back to another episode of Paint Society. In this episode, we're gonna go over some of the most basic pearl paint job blending and painting tips if you're a beginner, a do-it-yourselfer, or even a professional that you can apply to your vehicle right now. And thanks for joining me again on this episode. My name is Brian. If you're new to Paint Society, well, this is a channel for professionals and do-it-yourselfers, people getting into the game. If you're a beginner and you want to learn how to paint professionally or in your home garage, this is a channel for you. The tips and tricks I'm going to share with you today can be used in a professional environment or even right at home. So today what we have is a beautiful 23 Lexus IS 350, repairing some of the damage on the back door and doing a blend into the front door and blending into the rear door as well. Now, I can remember early in my career just being totally scared of getting a job just like this. Really, I would shy away from it and not want it just because I'd be scared of messing up. But believe me, pearls are a lot easier than they look. So today I'm going to show you some basic tips and tricks. So if you're a beginner, this is going to be great for you. If you're a professional, you might be able to pick up something along the way, so keep on watching, but we're really aiming towards those beginners here. So some of the things you might hear might seem a little bit basic, but that's what we're here for, to learn from the bottom up. So when we're talking about a blend, what we mean is the repair area was right here. It was a small dent with a scratch. It's been primered in white and everything else has been sanded with a 600 grit. So we're going to be putting application of color here, base first, and then extending our base about 4 to 5 inches past our primered area, and then we're going to be extending our pearl another 4 to 6 inches past that, and keeping it all contained in between these two doors so that it will match the quarter panel and it will match the fender just as well. Now, the first thing you're going to want to do when painting any white car is get yourself some lacquer thinner will work, or maybe even reducer. And well, white just has a weird way of showing black smudges that will never show up on any other car. And you never want to be in a situation where you're towards the end of the job, you see a black smudge and you put clear coat right over it and you lock it in forever. Trust me, that has happened before. So always do yourself a favor, wear gloves always. You don't want any oils or anything from your hands getting onto the panel. It will show through. And give it a thorough wash back and forth, a thorough wipe down. And this is going to really help get those black grease spots up that you just really only see on white. Now, once they're up, you can continue with the rest of your process, whether it's wax and grease remover and your water-based cleaner is what I suggest. Once that's all done, we'll start with the painting process. After it's clean, you always, especially on a white pearl paint job or white paint job where you're blending, always use a brand new tack cloth. You don't want any residue from previous paint jobs getting on it. Now, what you should do is open it up like that, let it sit for a good 15-20 minutes, let it air out. Now, these are low tack, meaning they're not as sticky. They're for automotive use. And I'll link everything in the description that you can use. So usually after it airs out, I'll just take it like this into a ball and we can use it on the panel. Now, I've let it air out, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna lightly go over the panel just to pick up any lint or anything like that. Now, I don't always tack, but I do before my base coat and I do before my clear coat. So I'll give it a light tack, and this just helps pick up anything that's on the surface. It's always a good idea to wear your gloves and to dress in a paint suit as much as possible to reduce the risk of lint or any paint contamination. One thing you do not need to do, but it helps me a lot as a visual aid, is putting down a clear base coat. The reason why I like this is because it has the same sheen as the base coat, and it really helps me see how my blend is looking around the front door and around the back door. It also fills in micro sanding scratches, but I wouldn't really depend on it to help you get out of a situation where you did not prep properly. For that, you should be sanding up to 800 grit on metallic, or even up to 1,000 on metallic, as suggested by Lessinol or Sickens. Now, for this particular paint, we sanded it between 600 and 800 because it's not a fine metallic. it's got a white base. So I'll go ahead and I'll put this down first on my 2 panels, and I'll link this in the description so you guys can use it on your project if you want. And after about 10 minutes of flash time, we're ready to go. Now, this is the area first we're gonna concentrate on, but we're not totally gonna concentrate on this area only. We really wanna concentrate on our base being in this area instead of one specific area. You're more likely to catch the blend if you spot it in one area. But if you take your color and you stretch it out a little bit more, you're not gonna see it as much, trust me. If you try too much techniques to do it here, you're gonna end up seeing it. So keep it a little bit bigger, but still contain it. To contain it, we're gonna use an X fashion pattern. Now this DV1 paint gun is the base coat gun, phenomenal gun. If you're a do-it-yourselfer, you don't need it, but it will definitely help you out. It runs at a lower pressure, so spray it in around 13 to 14 PSI. Our first coat is not gonna be heavy. We wanna introduce the base to the panel, and sometimes if you do too heavy on the first coat, you can get a little bit of fisheye contamination from it being applied a little bit too much with fluid. All right, we're gonna leave it just like that. Now, we're only covering this area on the first coat. On the second and third, okay, what we'll do is we'll cover a bigger area. That's my first coat. A big mistake that a do-it-yourselfer will do consistently is try to get everything covered in the first coat. Let it be. As professionals, we know we still have time, and time is on our side. I know some of you guys that are professionals might be in a rush because you need to get jobs done. But if you give it a little bit more time, let that paint flash. These are chemicals we're dealing with. Then that second coat will actually cover faster than if you were to just keep putting your coats on and on. Now the fact is we have a barrier, so our second coat can lay on top of it instead of keep soaking in to that first coat. So the second coat, I'm gonna bring it a little bit further, still at around the same pressure, 13 to 14 PSI. On a regular spray gun, you'd probably be in around 22, 24 PSI. So we'll focus a little bit more towards my right, a little bit more towards my left, and a little bit further down the door. So I did one way of the X, now we're gonna do the other way of the X. And pretty much after that, our blend is starting to become invisible. If our blend is still visible, you're probably having a problem in your ground coat. That means your ground coat is not the correct color. And 9 times out of 10, your pearl is not gonna fix it. Remember, your pearl is just an effect coat. It's not really gonna get you the color you want or hide your blend. So make sure that your base is correct first, and then you can move on to your pearl coat. What we'll do is we'll allow this to flash for a good 10 minutes, and then we'll check it out. And after 10 minutes, it's completely covered. I'm gonna bring you into the mixing room and show you a little trick before we pearl. Now what I'm gonna show you is what I do on all pearl jobs, and you can do it too. It's very simple, and it just really is cheap insurance to make sure you don't see your blend. So remember that clear blending additive I had from before? Well, I have a little bit left here, and if you had about one ounce, that's fine. If you don't have it, it's not a big deal, but it's just gonna help keep things a little bit more transparent. So I would say I'm gonna use that amount of pearl and that same amount of base, and there's no exact science to it, to be honest with you. It's probably in and around 1 ounce. That's probably about a little bit less than 1 ounce. So I'll put in just about the same amount. See, I'm not even really measuring, just really by eye. And then I'm taking that base, okay? So I had the clear blending additive, then I had the pearl that we're gonna use, and then I have my base that we just used, and I'm putting it all into one little mix, and then I'll shake it up. And basically what this is gonna do is it's gonna take the intensity of the base, and it's gonna help really transition the pearls into the rest of the vehicle without that abrupt stop. basically what we're looking at here is the end of the base and the end of the base. And we're gonna take this about 1 or 2 inches past our end of our base coat, and then our pearl will come a little bit further than that, straight up pearl. So we're only gonna do 1 coat of this, and we'll do that right now. And again, we'll use our X pattern. And that's it. We'll let this dry a good 10 minutes, and then we'll do a coat and a half of pearl, and that should be it. Now it's ready for just straight up pearl. If we look closely, we can see it's got a little bit of pearl. Now we never want to add too much pearl. So I told you we're going to do a coat and a half, and basically what that is I'm going to do it in X pattern, similar to the other way we've done it, and then I'm going to back up maybe like 4 or 5 inches and just give it a straight up parallel, let's say orientation coat. It's got a few different names, just to make sure that everything is nice and even. Now, I'm not saying this is gonna work on every single one of your jobs, but this is the process I follow, and this is what works best for me. Now, on this, when you're doing the pearl, it's also not a bad idea. Maybe drop the pressure a pound or so, and that will help just keep it wetter on the edge. One thing you should know that is if you have a situation where the base is dry, like completely dry where you're blending, that's gonna be a problem, because when the pearl hits it, it's gonna highlight that area over here, and let's say over here, wherever it ends. So if you have that situation, what you need to do is lightly scuff it down with maybe like 1,000 grit, and that's okay. Go over it one more time, and it should be much smoother, because that's the buildup of coats. And what that's from is not really using the X pattern and not using the right reducers. Try to use extra slow or slow reducers. That's greatly gonna help you out. Let's do a coat and a half of pearl, back to back, no time in between. And that's all it takes. Now, part of being a mature spray painter is walking away, knowing when it's gonna look fine, and knowing your limitations, when you should keep on going on or just give it a little bit more time. Now, I'm gonna be honest with you guys. That color I have here, if I were to spray it on a panel like the bumper where it would be butted up with no blending, it probably wouldn't match really good. But since we're using our blending techniques and the color is so close, it's really just okay to blend. You'll never know that this door is painted because we've extended our area. Instead of just trying to do a little area here, this would stick out like a sore thumb. Now we've taken our eyes and effectively we have lost the area. So we're not drawing our attention to one area. Now the whole area has the color, it's blended in perfectly, and we're ready to clear. And this is not a clear coating video. I have many other clear coating videos that can help you out. So let's hit the beats and start jamming and clearing.